Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the third and final award show for the Golden Shovel Wrestling Podcast Awards for 2025. Today, the big award is Men's Wrestler of the Year, as well as Breakout Star, Moment of the Year, and Match of the Year. Let's just get straight into it. As per episode 2, no bother with too many pleasantries because it's been about 90 seconds since we finished recording the last episode, but we're going to start with the most recent long list debate that we had. So hopefully this will be straightforward, and that is best match / favourite match / match of the year. Our official shortlist, after we work through the long list, is John Cena versus Cody Rhodes 2 at SummerSlam, Iyo versus Rhea with Naomi's cash-in at Women's Evolution, Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens unsanctioned match at Elimination Chamber, and Kevin Owens versus Cody Rhodes ladder match from the Royal Rumble. The first question, as always, gents, does anyone want to add to that list or immediately rule one out before we start going through them all? I think we debated this at great length last week, to be honest, to try and get this down to a manageable situation.
I can't think of any that are better than the four, with the exception of the triple threat women's match at WrestleMania, which we decided to go for the one with the cash in lieu of that based on the moment and what it did. So, and where it happened as well. I think we just built everything in to a nice wee package for that to be included. So,
if you do want to listen to the full debate, go back and check out last Saturday's, 2 Saturdays ago podcast, where you can listen to us try and work through this in some sort of methodical way, because it was actually, this probably one probably went the best. We split up into nice categories. We had Cena's retirement tour, we had big PLEs, we had the women's division, and we had whatever was left over. Or the Kevin Owens section, to be honest with you, the discussion.
I think that it's really difficult to pick a winner. And I'm not, again, we spoke about this at great length very recently, so I'm not going to go over so much old ground, but just really for anybody who hasn't heard that podcast and is unwilling to go and listen to it, which is rude, in my opinion, I'm probably torn between, I look at it and I say I'm torn between two, and then I read the match in between it, and I'm like, how can I not be torn between that as well? The one I probably rule out, and only because it's my least favourite of the four, not to take away from how good a match it was, is the KO versus Cody ladder match, and that's mostly because I don't really care for Cody's body of work, right? That's not a surprise to anybody who listens to the podcast regularly. But in the same breath, I'm probably just only going to pick match of the year based on the order that I found it most enjoyable to watch, because there's no really other metric for me to go on based on how good these matches were. So in third place, I'm going to put Cody and Cena 2, because I adore John Cena and everything that the man does and did and has done, and as Ross clings on to hope will continue to do. But again, I'm not really into Cody. It definitely deserves its place on this list for match of the year. It's what WrestleMania would have been had he not turned Cena heel. It's what we would have got at WrestleMania. It was a fantastic match to watch. I don't think it was better than second place, which is Iyo versus Rhea with the cash-in my opinion. Mostly because we were so hot on Naomi all the way through to the point where in our very first podcasts, when we were predicting who wins at WrestleMania, in fact this was pre-podcasts, was TikTok shots and making our suggestions of who we want to win, who we think will win. We were all in on Naomi. So for me, it was really gratifying to see that payoff for Naomi in that match and getting the moment she deserves on an all-women's only PLE against the two superstars who we just booked in Women's Superstar of the Year. I won't spoil it for anyone who's not listened to that podcast yet, so you're going to have to go and do your own work for that. But yeah, I think that one comes in second place. And the only reason it's not top is because I loved Sami versus KO more than anything else this year, which is crazy because as much as I dislike Cody Rhodes' body of work, I dislike Sami Zayn even more. But Sami and KO have this undeniable chemistry that, honestly, you could think of the worst possible match type you've watched in WWE, that Firefly House of Horrors, whatever it was called. They two would have made that good. I think they two could wrestle in a bin and make it enjoyable. Like, the two of them have just such undeniable chemistry, and we spoke about it last week. It's difficult with an unsanctioned match. You mentioned it's an unsanctioned match, but you've got a WWE referee in the ring. It's like, make it work. But I thought everything about it. The match from bell to bell was phenomenal, and it was going to we spoke about this in the last podcast, it was putting KO on the path to being world champion, obviously, to be undone, which could have won him a golden shovel in the end. But yeah, so my list is KO Cody 4th, Cena Cody 3rd, Iyo Rhea and Naomi 2nd, and I'm giving Sami versus KO match of the year. IMO.
I think based on the conversation that we've just had in real time 10 minutes ago and podcast time 4 days ago, regarding Kevin Owens' booking, I would concur that KO Cody's at 4. But I throw it to you, Ross. Is this, as you give me your thoughts on the short list and stuff, I'm sure we said this when we recorded the long list, but is this the hardest award? Because I think at this point we're splitting. Because I think we all actually agreed at the time that we pretty much discounted our favourite matches to try and be slightly more objective. Because I said that I'm honestly, I'm determined that I'm giving John Cena an award tonight. At some point I will make an award if I have to, right? But I love John Cena AJ Styles, and I've got more to talk about that match, but we try to be really objective and also look at what pushed stories on, what elevated people, what finished the story really, really well. So is this the hardest award to split hairs? Because I don't think there's anything between these matches. These matches,
not a bad match in it at all.
There's nothing between them. It's just going to come down to what you think delivered.
Pretty much. I think that we've not had our troubles to seek when it comes to the WWE this year in terms of things that have confused us, some things that just downright made no sense. But we all, I think, by looking at this list, can agree that when it has been good, it has been able to deliver in moments. And I think this list here is very much evidence of that. Like, you say yourself, John Cena's only mentioned in this list once. I would say that we've enjoyed certainly 3 or 4 of his really, really big matches. So that in itself shows that, yes, I know we were trying to be as objective as we could, but that in itself shows that there has been a level of good wrestling here. I am very much struggling to choose, though, which of these 4 is my favourite and is then therefore the one that is the one. I think because of probably when it happened, and this will very much upset Darren, and I'm very, very sorry, I'm going to have to probably discount Sami KO and KO's Cody ladder match. That was just before I was like really properly invested.
That's totally fine.
I'm struggling to kind of pick them, though I have saw clips of them. I've seen the Santi Zap reacting to them, so like I'm familiar with them. I guess it's when you then leaves the last 2 of Cena Cody 2 or Iyo and Rhea with the cash in, it's very much coming down to which was the bigger moment, the big drama moment, to which was maybe technically the better wrestling match. And that's how, for me, you get them. Now, the trouble is that I kind of love both of those things when it comes to professional wrestling. So how on earth you pick one?
Do you want me to explain my thought process in picking one? I know you don't.
John Cena's in it, that's why.
I know. I'm with you. Like, having went back and rewatched DC because of the conversation last week, like I do find it very hard to not pick Sami KO. I think even if I'm like saying, right, let me just accept it as a street fight and not do my soapbox about unsanctioned matches, right? Because I think you could book unsanctioned matches if you just have like off topic here, if you just say, right, you're waiving all your rights to access WWE Medical, you will be provided with a referee at your own expense. Just pretend that it's all happening out with that. Just pretend that's 10 rules. That type of thing would be brilliant. That you're paying for it all yourself, you have to have your own medical insurance. Just have that happen off screen, right? But got a street fight. It is an unbelievable banger of a match. I just think that if I was being really overly harsh, and it is overly harsh because if it is a 30-minute match, it's fucking incredible, is that Kevin Owens gets injured and we don't see him again, which is disappointing. Sami Zayn take out the US Open Challenge. What has he really done this year? And ultimately, since that's ended, we've seen him ringside watching John Cena, his wee boy. If I look at the other 2 matches, everything about Cena Cody 2 was perfect. It's the match that at the time, all year, we said probably should have happened in December. If he'd lost to Cody last week, I would have been happier, I think. I enjoyed the Gunther match and enjoyed what Gunther's now doing and what he's going to do. I loved the fact that even people who don't like Cena were giving him credit. That just proves that John Cena can actually wrestle that level of match. If I was going to be hypercritical to try and split hairs, I would say that Cena did more than enough to put Cody away. I don't actually think Cody did enough to put John away. I think Cena had avalanches and A after A. I think ultimately Cody won with... We've seen Cody use the triple crossroads and didn't win with it. Which, again, is hyper critical because we're kind of telling a story of John Cena body breaking down and slowing down over the course of the year. So it is like, that's the level I'm going to, and saying that split second of 10 seconds of the match is maybe the difference.
Let me help you here, Ross, right? Because based on what you've just said, right, his only criticisms, and they are hypercritical, right? I totally agree with him that we are splitting hairs here. But I think if you're telling me that you're splitting hairs here, the hair you're splitting in the match for John Cena and Cody Rhodes too is the finish, right? Hold on, I'm not done, right? So you're splitting hairs that you don't feel enough was done for that to be the finish, not that the finish was wrong.
Over the course of the match, yes.
Yes,
aye.
Right.
Aye.
The only hair you've split with the street fight is that KO got injured, and it was the booking post the match itself. Is this the hairs you're splitting in that match?
I think so.
There's nothing wrong with the actual match.
If I exclude my soapbox on unsanctioned matches, yes.
Of course. But so what you're telling me is that you actually think that KO Sami is match of the year because you didn't pick a fault in the actual match itself?
No,
only how they booked him beyond it.
What I'm telling you is, I think I'm picking Iyo versus Rhea with the cash in.
I don't hate your shout, but I want to just understand for Ross's benefit, because what you're saying is that it's not match of the year because Sami Zayn's booking since has been awful, but that doesn't detract from the actual match itself.
No, it doesn't detract from it. And that's
just a warm up for men's wrestler of the year, by the way, because I'm going in.
See if I was given my own versions of rating matches, and I won't use stars, I'll use out of 10. I would give both those matches 10s. I think that they were as perfect a match as they could be in the context of the stories I were telling. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens will never have a bad wrestling match one-on-one. It's impossible because they have 25 years plus of that, or 20 years plus that history together. It is impossible for them to have a bad match. Cena versus Cody, it gets 10 out of 10 because of the emotion and the storytelling that goes with it. It's John Cena's last run ending, pulls on the heartstrings, it pulls on 25 years of being a wrestling fan. It makes you feel something. I said, wrestling's supposed to make you feel something that tells a story. Yep. But also it comes from the fact that the WrestleMania match was so disappointing. It comes from the fact that it's the last elite match that John Cena has put on, really. The final match was a good story match, but it wasn't as good a match, bell to bell, that is the SummerSlam match. So, and I'm trying to be as objective as possible because I don't want to say I'm going to split those two matches and just let the third place sneak through in the last minute, because we've talked about that match, that Iyo versus Rhea match, because we did talk about it as part of best event of the year, episode 1 of the awards, if you want to go back and find out where that ended up finishing. We know we're talking about it for a moment of the year, and also it absolutely delivered on one of the very first predictions that we all agreed on in this show right at the start, when we said that Naomi should go to Raw and be a heel because she'll be the perfect person for people to chase, and like nice wee bow and everything, which I really cannot split these three matches. And I'm less familiar with Sami versus KO. I know I went back, I had it on the back, I watched it, it was on, I've seen bits of it, I haven't studied it the same way. I didn't watch it. Since I've done the podcast, I've watched the matches with the intentions of taking some notes and saying I like this, but I didn't like this, but I watched it as a fan because that's how you described it. That's what you described it as a wrestling fan, so I thought I'll watch it just. So it's hard for me to be as hypercritical, but I'm like, it was a fucking good match. It kind of once again ties into the whole aspect of the trigger should have been pulled on one of the guys.
100%. And the trigger would have been pulled on KO, I think, had they not got injured, unfortunately. I was just playing a bit devil's advocate because Ross couldn't pick.
I don't want to pick either. That's the thing.
Honestly, I don't hate if we give it to any other than KO versus Cody. I think he's probably the only one I would definitely not say is match of the year. But
no, I think that's fair as a fourth or fifth. I think it might even be fourth. There's probably other matches just that came down the short list and it was a really good match and we love Kevin Owens. That's kind of why it was fourth. It might be, I think we said when we did this last week at time of recording, a couple of weeks ago in times of issuing the pod, that the short list wasn't necessarily the top four, it was the final four. It's potentially that we put two matches together and we picked this one to go through. You know, a bit like a bracket, it's a final four, it's who you were matched up against in the conversation at the time, is who made this final four list. I think there's a clear top three out of the four.
So the question is, Ross, do you think Cena versus Cody 2 was better than Iyo versus Rhea? Because I know you're not picking Sami versus KO because you're not familiar with it, and that's fine. I'm cool with that. So which one do you think was best? Because if you pick Cena versus Cody 2, then I think we just give it to KO versus Cody because it didn't get a vote. Or do we? How do we work this? What's your thoughts?
It's going to be tricky. I think that's like you have to like roll a dice or something at that point. I mean, we could have a joint winner, I suppose. For me,
I mean, there's a really easy out. You used to have a men's match 3 and a women's match 3. That's a really easy out, but
true.
Nah, pick one.
But I think I'm going to pick one. I think that based on what lots of people said about the first attempt at doing this and how it just did not work at all, and then when they went ahead and actually genuinely put on an absolute banger, I think I do have to give it to Cena Cody. And I think that is in spite of the fact that
superb.
We are iffy on a lot of Cody Rhodes' stuff. As someone who's hilariously sitting wearing one of his t-shirts from that card show that we went to earlier on in the year. But yeah, I loved this match. I thought it was absolutely perfect. Yeah, I think that we can pick some issues about how they moved on from there and maybe finish the match, but ultimately this was your greatest of all time up against the face of the company at this time. And they delivered on one of the biggest stages.
Listen, as I said, I don't hate it. See, if we're going to give it as a collective to Cena Cody, I don't hate it, right? Because I did enjoy it. It was a fantastic wrestling match. Yeah, I would personally advocate Iyo and Rhea with a cash in over that, but Saunders wanted to give Cena Cody the love it deserved. I'm fine with it. My GOAT gets an award and Cody doesn't, by the way. Cena gets the award.
See, if it's going to Cena Cody, it's going because John Cena proved that he can, at 48, he can wrestle a wrestling match beyond 5 hours a day.
I'm cool with that. Will we lock it in?
Right, John Cena's
got a big button somewhere that we can press to kind of like lock it in. Is it like as if one is like a game show?
We should actually have that one. It's locked in. Match of the year: Cena versus Cody 2 at SummerSlam, because professional wrestling is supposed to make you feel something. The greatest of all time proved why he's the greatest of all time by putting on what is a ridiculous match, despite the face turn 40 hours before it randomly. But what a match, what a show. I'm glad as well because I think SummerSlam was one of these shows that if you go back and watch episode 1, you listen to us talk about best event. It was part of the conversation, but it was like there was highs, there was lows, and it was a 2-night event. It's hard to match up against some other events, but it's getting a bit of love there because main eventing the end of a 2-night show is extremely difficult, especially because of how night 1 ended.
True, yeah, very true.
Let's go for award 2 of this show, and that is Breakout Star. Now, based on the conversations we've had in the last couple of episodes and everything throughout the year, I've made a quick list of 3 or 4 people that I think are worth conversations. And again, we'll expand the list and then we'll bring it back into a winner. I'd like to throw in, of course, Sol Ruca. I think that conversation can be quite short. I'd like to throw in Javon Evans because I think that, again, I've thoroughly enjoyed his work. I would like to throw in at least a conversation on Fraxium because I know they've been on for a bit longer, but they came in as a tag team this year and we've thoroughly enjoyed their work and were involved in the conversation, at least for tag team of the year. And then I don't know if we would give necessarily Breakout Star, but other people worth having the conversation about might include an Obafemi, it could include a Stephanie Vaquer, a Finney Stratton, if you want to at least allow a little bit of rollover from 2024, which I think is a bit harsh on everybody else if you allow that. Does anybody want to expand on that list? People who have, I mean, it can be people who have surprised you, because like Stephanie Vaquer is at a breakout because she was very highly thought of in the other place and then outside of the WWE before she came in. It's not necessarily Rookie of the Year, it's Breakout Star of the Year, but we can frame that how we like. So maybe go to you first, Ross, as the resident NXT expert, and at least talk about some of the call-ups and who've hit the ground running.
I think that this is an absolute banger of a list, to be perfectly honest, and these are all people who
he's going to pick
we've spoke about a lot. He's going to be on the list next year, but happy that he's involved. Happy that he seems to sort of pseudo.
It's hard to pick for the award because we are at least a little bit familiar with his previous work.
Potentially, yes, which is fair. I think that's a fair point to raise. I think that everyone here has had a great 2025 and they've all had moments where they've been able to come in and make the step up to the main card or on big NXT events and put on great entertainment. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's why we're sitting down for several hours a week and then several hours a week recording this. It's because this is what it's meant to do, is meant to entertain you. And I think every single one of these people deserve to be on it. Maybe another brief mention, because it looks like he has been called up. Trick Williams seems to be another one that they are high on, and that he seems to be kind of sort of involved now on the top two brands, which is interesting that they pulled the trigger now, but I don't hate it. But ultimately, this list for me shows that there is a really, really healthy pipeline in the E right now for your next 5 to 10 years of it. Something that we've been concerned about at the GOAT's retirement would be, where on earth do you go from here? Look at all these big guys, look at their ages. Like, the next class of 10, 15, 20 years is looking bright. And I will set my stall out here. I am happy for any of these people on this list, ultimately, to win this award, because you could make a really good case for all of them.
As a throw over yourself, Daz, to either add to the list or try and work your way through it. If I just ask the question, is there a little bit of recency bias to Oba on this? Because I didn't have him on my list originally.
Massive recency bias.
Over the last 2 weeks, he's looked like a star, but we did criticise a little bit in the middle of the year the booking, because he was clearly ready for the main roster and they just had him hanging about, essentially.
I think he's the opposite of a breakout year, in the sense that he's not been allowed a chance to break out.
Aye.
Yeah, the list is good. The list is strong, although I think the winner is missing from it. But an honourable mention for Roxanne Perez. She's had a very good year since coming up onto Raw. Perfect mix moving into Judgment Day, and I think she deserves a lot more credit given Liv Morgan's injury and how prominent she's been in the Judgment Day. It probably came a bit quicker than they were expecting. But I think the winner of Breakout Star of the Year should be Lyra Valkyria. I think she's to come up and essentially go straight in at WrestleMania with the Judgment Day, which was Liv and Raquel at the time as champs, meant to team with Bayley, which was a travesty that we didn't get Bayley and Lyra then, to then team with Becky Lynch, win the titles, and then run that programme with Becky Lynch, which then included Bayley. I think she's had a fantastic year, and she deserves, in my opinion, probably to win Breakout Star of the Year purely on the basis of what she's achieved since stepping up. It's difficult because the most undeniable of them all has probably been Stephanie Vaquer, in the sense that her rise has been insane. But like you said, it would be a bit like giving it to Iyo Sky in that sense when she first came onto the roster. It's like, it's not really a breakout year for it. It's difficult. It's really, really difficult to frame it. Another person you could probably argue has had a breakout year despite having been in WWE for a couple of years is Dom Mysterio. Has had his proper breakout year this year. He's become a main event talent. I don't really care what anybody says. The guy is a main event talent.
He is 100%.
But again, I'm not going to award it to him on the basis that he's been wrestling with the company for a little bit on the main roster prior to that. So it's like, I'm giving it to someone who's just totally come in and just kind of come out of nowhere. And I think that had SmackDown not been cut to 2 hours, I think the standout winner for this would be Javon Evans. I think he's been really hampered by the cut to TV time, because every time I've seen him, he's looked incredible on the main roster.
Yeah,
and I think that if we had got another 6, 7, 8 matches over the course of the last 4 months for Javon Evans, I think he would be Breakout Star of the Year. I'm going to give it to Lyra. No,
it's actually a tough award to. And that's why we didn't do the long list. I thought it was worth subbing it as an own conversation in this recording, because do you include the NXT for likes of Javon Evans, Sol Ruca, etc.? You're including the work they're on NXT as well as appearing sporadically on the main roster, as you should, and they're getting credit for that. For Lyra, she had a really strong term in NXT. She's been out of NXT. You're right in saying that she still wasn't talked about on the level of some of these other women that came in, Stephanie Vaquer, Julia, etc. And she's quite frankly earned that right. And go back to episode 1 of the award show when we talked about Feud of the Year, that conversation between her and Becky was massive, and we loved that. We talked about it all summer and we were praising it every week. And you're right, I think it's a great show. I didn't have her on my list because I was thinking of her as an established talent, but you're right, because I think even to the point of view of somebody like Sol Ruca, Javon Evans, particularly Oba Femi, we'll probably talk about them this time next year as well, saying, right, if you've not been fully called up, have you really fully broken out? I'm not saying it's right or wrong for the world, but it's a conversation to happen. And the same thing is almost like Stephanie Vaquer, right? She's got a strong history in professional wrestling, but also her work this year almost exceeds the level of being called a breakout star, if that makes sense. It would be a bit like, you just picked a world champion to be a breakout star. She could have been
Women's Wrestler of the Year, instead of breakout star. Do you know what I mean?
In the same way that Dom Mysterio could arguably have won this award every year for the last 3 years. 2023, where he was the biggest heel in the company and then turned more heel by turning on Rhea Ripley.
The reason I don't have Dom in this list is because I believe Dom should be in another list.
Oh, no, you believe he should be in another list. Ross, do you want to make a vote or a decision? Or
we know who he's voting for. Cowabunga, dude.
Cowabunga, dude.
The Snow Snatcher.
You do make a very valid point about Lyra, to be fair, after the hype that we've given her and the praise that we've given her throughout.
She feels like she's been around forever, and it's actually only been this year. She does feel like she's been on Raw for a long time.
Proper mainstay. I think she's one that's definitely one that's good for the conversation. I think she maybe just misses out, so maybe. I think that the way that he's been positioned and the fact that I think he's appeared now on SNME and 3 brands. Swear he's been on all 3. I think you may have to give it for Javon. You know, I just feel like he's been able to impress, but you can clearly tell that there's a buy-in from those above him when they just seem to have found an opportunity quite a few times now to get him on TV. And I think that ultimately that can only mean that hey, look, I might be getting the wrong end of the stick here. Maybe he isn't the one, but for me, if that's shown a lot of faith, I think I might give it to him. But also wouldn't dislike Lyra or any of the others, really, to be honest.
I think timing plays a massive part in this particular award, because you could almost make a case, as I said, for Tiffy, but at the same time, her breakout was kind of last year, but it carried into this year because the whole Money in the Bank thing dragged into the start of this year, so it's like start and stop. Javon Evans, I think, is still in the middle of breaking out. Like, I'm agreeing with you, but like, and I think Daz's point is extremely valid, that had SmackDown stayed 3 years, we'd have seen him another 5 or 6 times, and he would have completed the breakout, if that makes any sort of sense.
He would be on SmackDown by now.
He'd be on SmackDown.
He would be on SmackDown.
I think conversely, Lyra completed the breakout, but then
won a title.
But because of the whole thing with not pulling triggers, the story with Bailey went nowhere for a few minutes. It's now going somewhere. That's good.
She's the only call-up. I think she's the only call-up other than Roxanne Perez that's actually survived, in the sense of
survived the mid-card.
Aye, that's what I mean. Because obviously Steph Vaquer went straight to the world title, whereas the rest of them are flung into their mid. Like Jordan Grace never even made it out NXT. She never even got onto SmackDown. So it's like, I don't hate the Javon Evans shout. I think we've seen a lot of him recently. In the latter part of the year, he started to be on our screens a lot more, which is great because he's great to watch. I think it's ever since he answered the US Open Challenge, I think he's been on TV 4 times since then or something like that, which is really, really good.
His match with Gunther at MSG was extremely
very,
good,
very
because it showed they can work with a different style of wrestler. It's easy for a high flyer to work with a high flyer because they just do high fly things, but
and see, to be honest, if there was another 2 months left of the year, he probably would win it, because every time he's in the ring, he's incredible to watch.
That's why I'm mentioning timing, because potentially in a year's time he could miss out because half his breakout was this year and the end of it's next year versus...
I think next year, I'll be honest, I think next year he probably will win breakouts. I don't think there's... I mean, there's a lot going to happen between now and then. MD can come into the business, do you know what I mean? I just can't see past the guy for breakout star next year based on what I have seen.
I think... I mean, you've kind of set me up here, because I could either pick a third person or I could pick between the votes. I think, based on the conversation that we had about an hour ago now, and the Feud of the Year conversation, I think I would think Lyra's a great shout. I am massively high on Lyra, so I'm kind of picking my favourite of the two here, but I'm almost picking because I think if I was going to give my specific reason as to why I would split the difference between the two of them, is I have seen what Lyra can do in the ring, and I've seen what she can do on the mic and out of the ring, and she's improved massively at that. I think working with Becky Lynch, somebody else who's obviously Irish background, you can tell a certain story. She's continued that on with the stuff with Bailey. That's really good. I think we now need to see, because Javon Evans has been allowed to go on and just wrestle,
There's no denying he's very, very good on the mic, but there is a level between
NXT
doing it
and
in
the main roster.
developmental and then cutting it, because she was mixing it with Becky Lynch, who's arguably the best woman on the mic, depending on your viewpoint on it.
She's in that tier.
Yeah, she's on that level. And I've got no doubt Javon can hang, we've just not a chance to see it.
Bear in mind, of course, that NXT being pre-taped allows for a little bit of
jiggery-pokery.
We can always retape it if we need to, versus live twice a week. So again, it's one of the ones.
Give me more Javon Evans.
Give me more. Before we move on, is the depth sufficient that we should have men's and women's breakout of the year, or are we content that it's a single award?
I don't think there's enough men's breakouts, to be honest.
I don't think there's enough women's either. I think there's two. I think it's Sol and Lyra, based on the conversation.
No, Roxanne as well. Roxanne's in there too.
I mean,
you could technically class Blake Monroe as a breakout in the sense that she broke out from a poor wrestling company into the biggest company and has done very, very well. But
I actually do want to mention one honourable mention, by the way, because you actually mentioned her name, but not for this. But I think it's worth highlighting Raquel Rodriguez. Whatever conversation Kevin Nash had with her, she should just walk. Kevin Nash should say she should walk like a 7'4", and then suddenly it's like,
wow, you're very good at this, yeah.
You're very good at just powerbombing people.
Definitely.
So, perhaps not a breakout because she's on the main roster for a period of time, but definitely worth highlighting. I think Lyra's a great shout, and once again highlights how highly we've thought of the women's divisions in general in 2025. But no doubt Javon Evans is a megastar in the making, and arguably is going, in 3 months' time, we'd probably look back and say, we got that one wrong. Javon Evans is broken out, and I really hope, and perhaps an early bold prediction for 2026, is he an Iron Man in Saudi Arabia at the end of January? Because we're watching him for an hour in the Royal Rumble. Or is he going to get relegated to the coffee spot?
He's definitely doing the coffee spot, 100%.
He's definitely doing a spot. It's going to be.
You've got the acrobatics for it. So.
But he could do the coffee spot for the top of the ramp. That's the thing.
Definitely,
Award 3 of episode 3. This one, I think, there's a clear 2 or 3. I think there's 3 we need to talk about, and I think there's a 4th I want to mention. Personally speaking, it's not my favourite, but the one thing I loved this year, and I'd be remiss not to mention it at some point in this conversation, is the fan service that John Cena paid to all his biggest opponents and rivals over the course of his career, particularly the Sister Abigail and AJ Styles in Perth, Australia. The crowd response to that was phenomenal. It's not moment of the year because it was the middle of the match. I think there's other things that are bigger in the context of WWE. It was phenomenal, and the reaction from him, the reaction from AJ, the reaction from the crowd was perfect, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Again, on that concept I've always mentioned, that professional wrestling should make you feel something. It was incredible, and it was a great way to pay tribute to a guy who, quite frankly, should move towards the Hall of Fame now. The 3 moments that have continually cropped up throughout these 3 conversations and the conversations heading back over the last 6 weeks, we've got both Money in the Bank cash-ins. So the Ruse of the Century, and then at SummerSlam was, in any other years, probably a runaway winner. Naomi's cash-in, and it's really interesting because we've been quite critical of cash-ins before we started this pod in previous years, where they've been a bit meh, but Naomi doing it in the middle of a great main event match and actually adding to what was a great main event match, a match that we've just had to split hairs on for match of the year, is phenomenal. It was a culmination of what was an unbelievable heel turn and a great storytelling and our best character work of her career, going from the hyper face to this annoying heel that's just winding people up every week, but doing it in such a good way. And again, I guess it's social media. The third moment that we absolutely have to mention, that, and to be honest with you, because of the sheer seismic nature of it, is potentially almost locked in, but we can have that conversation, is of course the John Cena. And yes, what came after was somewhat disappointing without having the corporate aspect of it with Corporate Rock, but we waited 23 years for it and we did get it, and the reaction at the time, and it did add to, spoiler alert, it's the only one I'm going to spoil, it did add to the show that we crowned best event of 2025, Elimination Chamber.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add to those lists? I mean,
there's one, and I think you've left the winner off the list, which is maybe controversial. Right, I think you've maybe left it off the list because I think some people almost forget that it happened.
Based on the fact of,
yeah, I mean, that was some sport, to be fair. No, I think the moments you've picked are great. There's probably 4 or 5 in the AJ John Cena match you could pick on their own.
Oh.
The intro that he gave AJ Styles was a really poignant moment for anybody who watched wrestling out with the E back when there was only one other competitor. The cash-ins, I mean, the ruse is one of the most interesting things done in the modern day, because the way that the industry is now, it's impossible to keep secrets. So to have that played out the way that it did on social media with Becky and Seth, and everything pointed that he was legitimately injured, that I think we were split every week and we flipped. He is injured, he's not injured, he is injured. And we just couldn't make our minds up. It was fantastic. Naomi getting the payoff, I spoke about it at length in the other pod, so I'll not go back into that, but it's the first thing we ever agreed on this pod, was that Naomi is going to be world champion. She needs to be a heel on Raw, and it played out to fruition. The heel turn, man. Just everything about the heel turn was shit hot, including the fuck you to The Rock, because everybody knows my feelings on The Rock. The one time I've actually enjoyed Cody as WWE champion, I think. The heel turn, man. Everything about it was spectacular, apart from Travis Scott, of course, burning Sage in the ring. But I think the moment that's been overlooked, and it gets overlooked because of his heel turn, I think that we witnessed the most important moment of modern wrestling history, and it gets overlooked because of how bad some people's perception of the match was, that John Cena won the record-breaking 17th world title at WrestleMania. And for me, I can't look beyond that as the moment of the year, based on the fact that it knocked out a record held by Ric Flair. I mean, how old Ric Flair is. So, and I'm going to defend the WrestleMania match a little bit to that extent, in the sense that anybody who went into that WrestleMania expecting SummerSlam match is a fool. It's the same way with his whole retirement tour. He told us he wasn't going to wrestle. He was going to ruin wrestling. He was going to do whatever he wanted. Yes, the finish is awful, where Cody doesn't hit by the title. It's really cheesy and cringy, but it kind of tells a bit of a story of a good guy and a bad guy who's willing to do whatever it takes to win his record-breaking title. But for me, winning the 17th world title, I just can't see how it can't be. In my opinion, it should be a moment in the last 25 years. In my opinion, I just can't see how it doesn't. It's the biggest moment since Ric Flair set the record. So
interesting.
I just can't see beyond it.
Because when you said, obviously these lists are exhaustive, I'm just trying to get the conversation started. And
yeah, of course.
I'm coming back through the conversation we've had to put them together, and I was like, I don't think so. The other three we talked about the most, and then you said, I was like, it does make a lot of sense. It just shows you how massive John Cena is for professional wrestling, and that you can't split the decision between winning the record. Well, we will split the decision, but you're talking between him turning heel and him winning, him setting a new record that, based on the way the world's wrestling entertainment is now being booked,
it will never be broken.
It's never going to be broken. It's like, that's how massive this guy is. Obviously, there's now 5 things on the list, Ross. There were at least 3 plus mentioned for that AJ moment, because it was fan service heaven. But would you add anything to the list, or do you want to start working your way through those moments?
Christ, there has been a few big ones. I think that you could almost kind of say, would we like to have our John Cena moment of the year award? And well, is that
a whole podcast
massively inaccurate? Yeah, that could be its own thing. Because when I think of the big moments, yes, we have the cash-ins, and yes, they have the moment with AJ in the crowd. Those were massive, and those were huge, particularly with the moment with the crowd over here, where they didn't have the ad break, and we got to see all of it. And you guys in the US did not.
Shit. Clash in Paris, although the Monday night after Paris.
Exactly. We did not. We saw all of that. They did not, which was mad. But then Daz makes a valid point. We have a record-breaking champion moment. Have it been done on the biggest stage of them all. We have the massive matches from him. But we have the heel turn, which we all wanted. There is another one, though, that we are forgetting. And again, this may be a recency bias thing. It's him tapping out. It's got to be one that we have to consider purely just... I know that so many people just did not get it. We were not in that group of people. The moment where he decides, I can give up now, and he smiles and he does it.
It's a really nice moment. No, it's a really nice moment for me.
Professional wrestling is supposed to make you feel something. When I felt numb, said that, but we all felt something at the time. Not numb for the decision, numb that, holy shit, my childhood, that is the last one, the last of my childhood gone.
I felt like Brock Lesnar was taking younger me to Suplex City and stuff. Yeah.
I mean, so here's how I'm feeling the conversation. Like, I think it's quite hard to actually split the 2 Money in the Bank cash-ins. And I think, for me personally, I would like to know, did LA Knight know that was the finish at Saturday night's main event to set up the Rose of the Century, because if he didn't, I would not lie, I would say that's quite distasteful, but I think he probably must have known and just sold it
If he
really
did
well.
know, the reaction's awesome.
Brilliant.
His reaction
and
awesome.
I would add to it, but it's quite hard to split the two things, because, like, again, I know it's not a decision at the moment, because we're basically saying that the moment of the heel turn, we're separating the fact that we didn't get the follow-up, but at the same time, that plays out my second year, but in that moment, we've not really had the payoff of Raw and Punk the way it should have ended because of the injury. See, without the heel turn, John Cena probably still wins WrestleMania, right? But see, without winning the title, we don't necessarily get SummerSlam match at the level it was at. Like, I know it was a passing of the torch, and it was like the last of our childhood. That's kind of when it ended, like, within theory, because after that we could just get fan service until the other week, and it was like, that's the end of the last run, that's the end of John Cena as a WWE champion, that's the end of the WWE champion. Without the heel turn, we still get the retirement match that's probably still Gunther, but without 17, it's no. It sets up him winning at WrestleMania, and that moment does set up everything that comes after it. But if you take out the heel turn, I think that still happens, just slightly differently. Because
just the roles are reversed. Yeah, just the roles are reversed, I think.
The roles are reversed a little bit. And ultimately, yes, I think Cody should have turned heel. I think it'd have been fucking brilliant. But the way, if you were asking me to book it, corporate Rock turns on Cena and takes corporate Cody, and boom, that's your next 18 months of your heel champion. And we're probably sitting here saying, I really like Cody Rhodes' work this year, because that heel turn was brilliant, and everything that's coming is going to be great.
I'm willing to eat a big slice of humble pie if they ever pull the trigger on it.
100%. So that's the bit that's missing, but I'm in complete agreement. Like, winning 17's massive. It's the biggest moment of the year, isn't it? Really, it does come off the back of the heel turn, but I think it's the one. If you take that out, I don't think the rest of the year works. If you take out the heel turn, which you might as well, the rest of the year still works. We still get the fan service. We still get Cody and Cena at SummerSlam. We still get John Punk at some point. We still get John Randy at some point. Do we get the What We Are Truth? Maybe not, but we could be done without that. Definitely. Maybe we get Cena Miz, which would have been
much better.
Great, much better in the middle of summer. I think it's a great shout, and it's difficult sitting here in the middle and trying to keep the show going and being like, right, if I end up with the last vote, because I can split the decision, but I don't want to make it 2-0, but it's hard to disagree. I think you made a valid point on that. I mean,
see, to be honest, you could pick, I also really like Ross's shout about the tap out, because it's not a happy moment, and everybody thinks moment of the year should be a celebration. It is, in a sense, a celebration, because it's literally the last time we will ever see John Cena in a wrestling ring in that capacity. It is a really poignant moment. The only reason I would give it to 17 over it is because they were two very separate moments for me, and that watching 17, I got to watch the guy I watched win 1 through 16 lift that title, be announced as the brand new world champion for the final time, and that was really, that was like closing part of my childhood, to say that my goat still got it. But then my childhood closes entirely when it comes to wrestling. I spoke about that last week, is once I see out the stories that we've got and what comes next over the next kind of 12 to 18 months, what is my connection to this company? Because the likes of Randy Orton and AJ Styles are probably on their way out as well. So does that connection hold true post John Cena world? But watching him tap out was a very somber but also happy moment, in the sense of he went out the way he wanted, and without like breaking down what wrestling actually is behind the scenes, and all the stick that Unreal got. If anybody deserves to pick how to go out, it's John Cena. So it's like giving him the creative choice to say, right, at the very beginning of this, I'm going to tell people I'm doing this till my body can't do it anymore. To then watch that play out and him accept that is just a really, really awesome moment that I don't think I've ever seen before. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that in professional wrestling, where there is that breakdown of the fourth wall and he tells the people at home, listen, this is it.
I'm done.
Yeah. So it's a really poignant moment, but I think 17...
And also it's just set up Gunther to be the biggest heel that the company's ever seen.
Oh yeah, I mean, in terms of giving somebody the rub, it's the biggest rub you'll ever get, I think.
I mean, we spent a lot of time in the build-up to that particular moment, and on TikTok, a lot of the conversation with people was all about Gunther not needing it, and they still found a way to say, actually, they got that one right and Gunther needed it. it's so difficult because I thought this would have been really straightforward. We'd have picked, we'd have split the cash-ins and said they were both good, and then went with the heel turn, and then this is just completely thrown me. And I think we got 17 right, and then we got this obnoxious heel John Cena, which was fun. I enjoyed it at times.
Me too.
We also got this obnoxious introduction, which post face turn became this big thing every week where he got introduced and everybody was joining in and going mental and celebrating. That's what gave us the AJ intro. If you know what I mean, because you mentioned that Ross is another moment that was really good, but if he doesn't win 17, he doesn't create his own obnoxious intro. Therefore, he doesn't create an introduction for AJ Styles, and we don't talk about that as a moment.
It's true.
I mean, to me, what was the most important moment this year? It might actually be Cena tapping out. What's the biggest? It's potentially the heel turn. What's the
most important to the business is probably 17.
But 17 probably breaches across the two categories. And does that mean that it's the his moment here, or does that mean that actually it's not because it's just...
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that 17 would have happened irrespective of the heel turn. So we would have got 17 regardless.
If he wins 17 as a face, this is a no-brainer conversation, isn't it? It's probably because the way he won it, and you're like...
But that in itself is... That doesn't take away from the moment.
Part of the moment.
We still have the record-breaking 17-time champ. I just think it's really difficult to look past, but Ross made a really good case for actually his final moment. It's weird because they're probably the two most poignant moments of John Cena's entire career, in the sense of he won the record-breaking 17th title, but then also tapped out, something he's never done in his entire career. So it's like, which one is bigger? In my opinion, 17 edges it. But listen, if we want to go for the heartbreak, then we'll go for the heartbreak.
I take it we're not going to go for Brock Lesnar's return at SummerSlam.
In terms of biggest shock, it probably is up there.
Return.
Oh, fuck him.
Aye, but it's the biggest shock for the wrong reasons, because nobody was expecting them back until said legal issues were sorted, or at least confirmed sorted.
Alleged legal issues.
They are legal issues. It's alleged whether he'd done them or not. Allegedly, he was in trouble.
Whether he's got legal issues.
Cover my NRC here. He's mentioned in somebody else's legal issues. The John Cena awards have been John Cena goes to John Cena, essentially. I think
we could just give John Cena moments of the year.
I'm not, but I think that's valid. But that's very much based on our emotional attachment to him over the last 23 years. That's how moments are created, isn't it? Because, like, no offence, MD can cash in money in the bank, can't they?
I've got a perfect way.
It needs to be something care about.
To break this and pick one. I think that we go with a guy who doesn't have the emotional investment. I think we let him split the two, because he's watching it from a different perspective than we are. Because I'm so wrapped up in 17, because that's my goal. I watched them win 1 through 16. I've seen them all. I loved it. I was part of the C Nation, part of the chain gang. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I think that's...
So,
I think that's a good shout.
Ross doesn't have the emotional attachment going into that match that we had. It's not that he doesn't know anything about John Cena, but he wasn't one of those...
He does not, I know, and also if we don't like it, we can just blame him.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I'm big enough to take it.
Cast and vote. Moment of the year.
The moment of the year is the tap out.
Okay. For
me, I think that if you don't have the title moment, if you don't have the banger matches, if you don't have the heel turn, if you don't have the face turn, and the good and the bad, ultimately showing everyone that John Cena is actually human and not everything is perfect. And then you have the moment. I mean, because I distinctly remember watching it, and he smiles and he taps out. I just kind of nodded my head and went, "Yes, that's how you do it." I was
at peace when he nodded. That's the thing.
But I think, see, if it's having that impact on a somewhat neutral in the John Cena camp, then it probably is moment of the year. If it's making guys who don't have an emotional attachment feel the emotion for that guy, then we'll wait up on that. So let's get ready for 12 rounds.
I think the next award is more straightforward than the conversation is going to be. But yes, we're going to have there'll be debating this one, because Daz, this was the one you missed, and I know you feel quite passionate about it. That is men's wrestler of the year. Now, the short list that we put together ended up being 5, and it was Cody, Cena, Punk, Rollins, and Gunther. And a lot of this was based around the fact that we're not leaving John Cena off this list, because we have enjoyed most of the work this year. He did. For the heel turn, for the output, this was before the tap out, which we've all just agreed was moments of the year. We get the fan service that we really wanted to go to work with the people that wanted to see him work with. Hell of a year. Was he the best wrestler of the year? Probably not. But as we always say, there is more to wrestling than what happens between the ropes. There is other stuff as well.
We were sports entertainment.
Part of it. Cody Rhodes, he's on the list because he was bookend this champion, and he was part of so many big moments and big wrestling matches. But let's be honest, we're not picking him because
I hate the guy, but he should be on the list.
He needs a heel turn, but he should be on the list. Punk and Rollins were on there because ultimately they have been big superstars on Monday Night Raw and they have been world champions. Ultimately, they were part of one of our favourite matches this year in terms of that triple threat match at WrestleMania. However, I think as the years went on, and this was recorded a wee while ago, the long list, Rollins' injury is such an inopportune time that he's missed too much and it's probably going to be difficult to count him in this. However, I do know for a fact that at points this year we call for him to be World Heavyweight Champion again because the title needed him at one point. He needed to be in that picture. Punk, he's had a good year, but I don't think his year's personally been quite as strong as last year. I think his feud with Drew exceeds anything that he's done this year, but he's arguably carried Monday Night Raw at times as a face perspective. And the last name on this list was on here because of how much we enjoy his work, and this was before everything that happened the last 2 or 3 weeks, but Gunther is definitely in this conversation because the way he's going to go into 2026 is going to be absolutely phenomenal, and I'm pretty comfortable that I could probably lock him in for next year's award based on how 2026 is going to go. Obviously, the drawback on his scenario is he did miss sort of 3 months or so just with injury and an opportune time. You can talk about WrestleMania all we want, but ultimately that was a booking decision. He did his job. He had a great match with Pat McAfee. He made Bill Goldberg look like a wrestler at least for a few minutes, and has ended the year as strong as anyone has ever ended the year. But I'm going to go straight to Daz, and Daz is going to go in his soapbox and explain why we were wrong to leave somebody else off this shortlist.
I think that you were wrong to leave somebody else off this shortlist whilst including 2 of the people you've included. I'm not saying that this guy... No, I'm saying it. Fuck it, I'm saying it. Punk and Rollins don't belong on this list. Gunther, Cena... I
don't disagree.
Gunther, Cena and Cody definitely have the right to be on this list 1,000%. My thoughts on Cody have been abundantly clear through the entire year on this podcast. I do not care for his work as champion, but you would be a fool to say that what he means to the business and the way that he's booked, he's the new Super Cena in the sense that he wins everything even if he doesn't need it. It's just the way it is. But for the guy to have been world champion, he gained his world title and put on a potential match of the year contender in that, and then which we may or may not have awarded match of the year. So it's a bit like... show,
so if you're watching right now, I hope
yeah. So I'm just a bit like he's probably the most obvious answer, right? But I don't like him, so fuck him. But I'm not disparaging his right to be here, right? Cena,
he's done his job.
1,000%. Yeah, absolutely. Cena, 1,000% should be on this list for his run. He get dealt a shit sandwich with the heel turn situation, and that's out with everybody's control beyond 2 arseholes. But he ran with it. He made it work. Some of his best work was done as a heel. I said this last week on the pod. I think when people watch it back in a couple of years' time, it's an 8 out of 10 retirement run. I think that people are just so overly critical right now at the moment. And Gunther has been doing Gunther things for quite a while. So, yeah, Gunther definitely deserves to be on this list. Punk hasn't had a bad year. I agree with you, Sanders. I don't think Punk's had a bad year in the WWE. He's won 2 world titles, albeit he held one for about 4 minutes. It's not a bad year for him, considering his age, to be back in the main event scene. And I think he cut a really good promo last week, which I've been waiting for about a year. His work going into 2026 is going to be very, very good. This work he's going to be doing with Braun Breaker, etc. I don't feel he's had a year worth putting him in the conversation for this, but I understand why you've done it. Rollins is the biggest mystery on this list for me. I don't see what the guy's done to merit it. See, and that sounds mad to say because he's a brilliant worker, but see if you take the turn at WrestleMania and the triple threat, amazing, cinematic, Paul Heyman, not Seth Rollins. But see if you remove that in isolation, his work and the Vision was awful. The Vision were awful for the longest time. The Vision are now flourishing because Seth Rollins is injured. And I'm not saying that Seth Rollins was the problem, but what I'm saying is it's impossible to get these other guys over with a guy like Seth Rollins in that faction. Seth doesn't need them. We spoke about this at length when he made the Vision. I actually think Seth's had a really bad year. I'm not saying he's been bad in the ring. I'm not saying he's been bad at necessarily cutting promos, but what I'm saying is that if I'm looking at that list of 5, Rollins has had the worst year out of those 5 guys. And
I think so.
How he made it into this list at the expense of someone who's having such a hot year like Dom Mysterio
Before
is
you
utterly
go on your
bonkers to me.
domestic, on the podcast, it came down to a really straightforward decision. You either include Punk and Rollins or you include none of them. That's how we came down to it, because they work with each other. And the issue we've had is they've now haven't had the payoff when they were not getting that. I think at the time the conversation was valid. I think now 6 weeks later, you're right. Punk's doing better work with Braun Breaker than he did with Seth Rollins. Now I would look at the two of them and say, yeah, they're not on that list. The other three are clear.
But
and
would
you're
you
right,
have said that the Rollins and Punk angle was better than everything Dom's done since WrestleMania? Because Dom has managed to maintain main event level heat whilst being cheered and holding that title, dropping it to John Cena and winning it back.
So he
I'll be
dropped it to
honest.
Cena after we'd recorded this. That's what I'm saying. I think that's why I said everything we record in November there's always subject to change, because you could have it. And
even in that angle, then the guy hadn't even dropped his title yet, and I think that if I'm being really honest, he would be my pick to win it. But I'm not stupid, in the sense that you've got Cody Rhodes, who has been fantastic. If you're into Cody Rhodes, there's no getting away from that. My winner in this list is, as it's presented to me, is Gunther, is my winner in this list. But Dominik Mysterio, in my opinion, has been the best men's wrestler of the year. Packaged everything up, hasn't missed a beat through injury until, unfortunately, maybe now, in the last couple of weeks of the year, he's got a shoulder injury. But I think there's a lot goes unsaid about Dom Mysterio that everybody you ask says who works the hardest. It's Dom Mysterio. Everybody, the guy's a workhorse, the guy's this, the guy's that. And I think that we see it. He works WWE, he works AAA. I just think the guy's had the best year out of them all. And it's obviously, it's in relative terms, his year has been a better year for Dom Mysterio than Cody Rhodes has been for someone on Cody Rhodes' level. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not trying to pin him up against a main event guy and say what was a better year, winning the IC title or being two-time WWE champion, because that's an impossible battle to win. I'm saying in relative terms of how you're booked and what you can do with what you're being booked with, I think Dom's had the best year.
it's such a tight award. So I know you missed that pod. Punk and Rollins were the last people on this list, and it was because we had to basically pair them, as I says, and we kind of cut the list at world titles, but with the caveat that we would revisit any list that we made at the final show, because things are subject to change. And like at the time we did this, I think Gunther just returned. So Ross and I, you and I were discussing, saying like they've been back to his old music. That presentation now puts it like that's like that aura is unreal. But also we had to mention the fact that he'd missed something like 10 weeks. Now he hadn't missed a beat, and the fact is it was one of the ones that's not a bad thing to happen, because he'd such a busy year that having a break and coming back, not repackage the new music or the old music coming back, it worked out for him. And obviously you've got to balance recency bias and say, well, like who's most primed for a massive 2026 is Gunther. He's been world champion twice this year. He's had retired John Cena, etc. So I think that's a valid point. I think Cody were overly critical.
I just want to say as well, by the way, that he's recorded this shortlist on the 2nd of December, because I was in hospital that night. So Dom had already dropped the title and re-won it against Cena, so he'd already had the rub for Cena. I would actually make the case that Dom's got a better case for a better 2026 than Gunther.
I don't know if I can agree with that personally, just purely because
what's next for Gunther?
Seeing isolation, yes, but in Triple H world,
but what is Gunther's next? Gunther's next feud is AJ Styles. That's what's happening next. That is what's happening next. Mm-hmm. So I don't think, again, it's like trying to compare a main event level heel to Dom's the best heel they've got in terms of working the crowd and being a tweener and all that kind of stuff. Gunther is your old school heel, but Gunther, fans are way more into Dom Mysterio than they are into Gunther. I think if it's a toss up between the two of them, if somebody else except Triple H picks, Dom gets the push instead of Gunther, but he loves Gunther as champion. It's just what he does. But it is a democracy, so whoever wins. I just want to make it abundantly clear that it's a travesty that Dominik Mysterio was omitted from this list at the head of two guys who have had very mid years.
I mean, that's the thing. You're holding these guys to. I'm not disagreeing with you, because you're holding these guys to massively high standards, like Punk and Rollins are held to. Like we're still holding Punk to the standard of 2011. Let's be honest.
I'm holding him to the standard of the main event guys that he's currently with. So I'm holding him to the standard of Gunther, and he's not had a Gunther year.
No, he's not doing that. You're not.
Neither has Rollins. I would argue neither has Cena, unfortunately.
No,
But
on that list, to me, Gunther's clearer than the rest of them.
aye,
I think your point is valid about consistency across the year because Gunther was involved.
Gunther dropped his world title.
He should never have tapped out WrestleMania at JS, so there should have been a triple threat. That he should have been protected. They must have known that Gunther was at least on a short list to retire John Cena at that point. They should have protected him there and then. He was then involved in taking the title back. I'm not saying it was a good thing or a bad thing to facilitate a retirement match with Goldberg that he was never going to lose,
and then dropped it.
And then he dropped it because he was injured. Even then, at that point, if he thought he was retiring John Cena, have the cash in during the match and protect him a little bit. It's the booking. Dom Mysterio has him a bit badly all year, but he did have quite a lengthy injury layoff. But at the same time, he was on telly every week still. I've got a doctor's note. Like, he played the character really, really well. It's difficult because I'm like, I am waiting for what's next for Dom. Like, he's on that. He was part of that conversation in episode 2 where we're saying, like, pull the fucking trigger on some people. I think he should have been world champion this year. I think he should have had.
I agree. Oh, totally with you. And I think if we're talking about a guy who is in his breakout year, but we think he's too good to be in the conversation for breakout star, I just don't get why he's not in the conversation for men's wrestler of the year.
Probably purely and simply because of that lacking world title. I think if you put a strap at that level of strap on him,
so
there's probably a very easy conversation to have.
You're saying that the best wrestlers now need to be world champions? Because that's crazy.
They don't need to be, but
we
I think
gave
if you're
Rhea
making
Ripley Women of the Year and she didn't win the world title this year.
Yeah, which is fair, but I think if you're going to make a case and you can put a belt on them like that, then it makes the case a lot easier.
Dom is a world champion for what it's worth. It's not WWE champion, but he holds the main belt on a brand.
It's fine, but I can't say I've watched any of it. So to me,
that's a you problem.
Is Mexico even a real country? I don't know.
I'm willing to award it to Gunther, but I think Dom's had the best year out of any man on the roster in terms of consistency.
This is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that's the top 5 or a final 5 list. That was the conversation that we had the other week, and I think you've made a good case. I think your reasons for Dom being the conversation, like I do have him in my top 5 in terms of who we've enjoyed. It's trying to split between best and favourite and everything else, and how he did that. Like, has Cena been the best men's wrestler this year? No, he's probably the highest points, but consistency is part of it. Cody we will always be critical of people who aren't there every week. Cody missed a lot of time for filming. Roman Reigns is the best wrestler on the roster, but he doesn't wrestle enough.
I agree. I totally agree.
So you can't have him in the conversation. If we're just saying who's the best, it's Roman. That's it. Move on. But
I think you're probably right to say as well. It's kind of like, see, if you were basing it on the first 6 months of the year, it's one of those things we spoke about right in the beginning of pod 1 with Jey Uso. Jey Uso should be on this list, but they've also put him on the list for biggest video. So it's like, how does that work? Because he was the biggest guy in the company for like 6 months. Yeah, it's strange. I don't think that any of the first 4 should win it. And I think if anybody but Gunther's going to win it should be Dom Mysterio.
Whereas I think my vote would probably go, and I would have to go to Gunther, even though, tap out aside, I can't really fault it. And that's not his fault, I think, with the booking. That's just the way it is, I suppose. But what a way to end it. What a way to end a year, man.
See, the only thing that's still like,
I don't think Gunther's been booked particularly strong between his title reigns, by the way.
I've had Gunther penciled in for this in my head for a while before the tap out, and I'm very wary of recency bias. Like, I'm trying to be balanced across the whole year, and the thing that sticks in my head is he did miss from SummerSlam until mid-November. That's quite a long time now. I fully understand that it's the War Games vortex, which doesn't really count in terms of storytelling in the WWE, but it is a long time to miss, and it was a good time to miss for him. But when I think about taking out 10 weeks of the year, and then I take out the fact that, okay, here's another couple of moments we didn't enjoy this year, I'm pushing something like a quarter of the year or 18 weeks of the year where I'm like, Gunther wasn't great. So he was really good in the build up to the Rumble and in the Rumble itself, and then he was really good in the build up at the start of the year. Ultimately, the WrestleMania match with Jey Uso was good, but I try to balance within the realms of kayfabe and within the realms of putting on a show. it was weak. He then kind of disappeared off telly because he kind of did a promo saying, right, whoever wins out of JSO and Logan Paul, which I don't know if that match actually ended up happening, did it? Or it did happen at Backlash, I don't remember.
I can't even remember. I totally forgot Backlash even existed.
He did that thing saying, right, whatever happens between you guys in 3 weeks, I'm coming for you 3 weeks after that. So that's like a 6-week period where he's doing nothing again. And I'm like, I know that's part of the character. I get it, but it's like being weekly is important, and I don't know. This is the thing. I think the main side of the things this year has been really weak in general.
But here's a fun fact here, right? See, between dropping the title to JSO, Gunther wrestled one match and it was Pat McAfee. That's
what I'm saying. That 6-week block we did nothing. Just quite a long time.
And then see since he beat Goldberg, he has wrestled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 televised shows since WrestleMania.
It's interesting that.
He's did house shows, but he's wrestled 6 shows from a defeated CM Punk. CM Punk defeated Gunther, sorry, in the 2nd, and then in the 17th of November, he's wrestled Raw 3 times, SmackDown once, and Cena's final match.
Interesting.
Don't get me wrong, that obviously doesn't take away from his work before WrestleMania, because he worked one match in January, one match in April. One match in January, one match in February. 6 matches in 12 matches in March, but that includes house shows, I think. And then WrestleMania. So, see, to be honest, he's actually wrestled, including house shows, 26 matches in 2025.
Not enough. That's what I'm saying.
Including house shows.
That is what's down in my head. Like, I think Gunther has had the best year, but I don't think he does enough to give him it. That's like, if that makes any sort of sense. Like, the high points have been so good. Like, he was good at WrestleMania, he was good at SummerSlam. He's been good in his matches. He put on a banger with Pat McAfee. It was a good match. He's great in the ring. He's now turning in this heel monster. And I do get that now his persona now can't wrestle every week. He needs to cut promos and wrestle once a month. How it is now, but that's not how it's been all year. Again, I still think there's a little bit of like the timing on this. Like, what he does in the next 3 months or 4 months might have us saying, yeah, we got that one wrong. We spot on that and deserved it. Dom's kind of the same. If they had pulled the trigger on Dom earlier, pushed him in the world title picture, not even win it, even just give him an opportunity to see what he looked like, we're probably on that. I just don't think there's the standout in the men's side. Because if you ask me who I've enjoyed watching the most this year is Dom. Like, that's fine, but we've tried our best not to just pick favourites every single time. We've tried to be a little bit objective as well as subjective. And that was the thing I'm worried about the most now with Dom Mysterio's this injury is, like, there's so many storylines they can tell, including the likelihood of him versus his father at WrestleMania. If that's off the table, I will not be fucking happy.
Me too.
And even then, like, it sounds daft, but see if Braun Breaker had won the world title this week rather than potentially winning in 2 weeks' time, we're probably having a conversation about his year. But he's been a side piece for most of it. And
see, to be honest, at that list, having looked at Gunther's run, Cena's had the best year. And that sounds mad to say out loud.
I know.
Guess how many matches Seth Rollins wrestled?
I would say somewhere between 15 and 20.
17.
That's the issue. And how many of them were tag team main events?
Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Wasn't involved.
Yeah. It's one of these things where you're drawn into the big moments because Seth's got a massive moment with the cash in the Rose of the Century. Gunther's got the big moments where he wins the title and he retires Goldberg and he retires, like, the big moments in his year. But actually, can you live off being a guy who wrestles 13 televised matches in a calendar year? Can you win Wrestler of the Year with that? It's the same for Rollins. Rollins had Rose of the Century and it could have won Moment of the Year. Has his body of work been good enough to win Wrestler of the Year? I don't know. I think, see if you Google how many times Dominik Mysterio's wrestled, I think you'll need about 6 pages worth. And I think, if you watched a Dominik Mysterio match and said that was awful, or that didn't work, or that wasn't good, I think the reason I'm so hell-bent on Dom winning it is because the men's side has been awful.
That's what I'm like. That's
and I can't think of a men's wrestler in fact, Ilya Dragunov's been very good, but he's just not been about long enough.
No, I know. And like Sami Zayn's
Sami
run. No, I know, but Sami Zayn's run and with the title was good, but in the match, the match at EC was really good, but then everyone else has been like.
If Kevin Owens doesn't get injured, he wins it anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Dom Mysterio's wrestled 51 matches this year.
That's crazy. It's a tough one.
That is a tricky match. And it is because realistically we should be sitting here saying that
also won't include his Triple A matches probably.
No, it's cage match at all. But that's still one a week. He's the only guy who I think is wrestling weekly. I mean, we're rolling out Punk and Rollins and...
Do we just give it to Cody? Because I mean, the guy has had an undeniable year. like St. Tim's of his accolades and achievements.
I don't want to.
No, I don't want to either. It'd be a really awful way to go out, but it's kind of hard to.
I don't know, man, because like I want to see how many matches here. I'm very well we're going to get this out.
By the way, apparently Dom has wrestled 115 matches this year.
I think 51's televised matches, including Triple S. So
Yeah, it might be, to be fair, because they do house shows, but they're just not as prevalent. It's only tours the day when they go. Aye. So
Cody Rhodes has wrestled 32 matches this year. I know it doesn't matter, but it kind. See, when you're the champ and you're the face, it does kind of matter to me anyway.
Yeah. My main case for Dom was about longevity, how good he's been consistently all year. And it's like even when he did have the injury, he was still one of the best things on TV, and we were sports entertained, shall we say? All year with Dom Mysterio.
I mean, the only person I could definitely turn around and say that I'd want to pick him is Cena, but even then, that's just because it's Cena.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I'd say, to be honest, I think we're avoiding the elephant in the room that Cody probably is Wrestler of the Year, which is unfortunate because the guy's won everything. He won King of the Ring, he won his title back. I mean, he's defended it successfully, probably more than anybody else has. So it's like
did have a good match with Owens, to be fair, in the Crown Jewel. It's a good match.
I don't want to give it to Cody, but I am also level-headed in the sense that my personal feelings towards the man does not take away from what he's actually achieved.
I think it doesn't take away, but it does obviously impact it.
Makes me feel unhappy about saying it out loud.
See if he turned heel, won the title at SummerSlam and held it, this is probably nobody in our conversation.
Yeah.
At that point. Ross, you look deep in thought.
He's no idea what's going on anymore.
I think he's all make valid points, but I just can't really get away from how I kind of have felt about what I saw and how it all ended up with Gunther. But I very much enjoyed it. But I just enjoy listening to you to have a back and forth and basically doubt every single one of your choices. That's
we make a really solid pick and then give 10 arguments why it should be somebody else.
I'm locking in Dom Mysterio. That's my pick. Do what you
really
I'm locking
what it sounds like to me.
I'm going to Ross, before you speak, I'm going to lock in Cody Rhodes.
Well, I think then what that sounds to me is this is a decision that should not be made by us and it should be made by those at home. If we can't make it up,
that's the most Triple H booking I've ever held.
Someone else is going to have to do it for us, and I don't think that's unreasonable.
Your Christmas present to us is picked between Cody Rhodes and Dominik Mysterio.
And Gunther. Versus Gunther.
And Gunther, who wrestled 13 times this year.
See, genuinely, up until 90 seconds ago, I would have given it to Gunther. And then as soon as we got the number of matches, like, as I said, it just stuck in my head how much time he missed and how he had that bit of, whoever wins that match in 3 weeks, I'll see you in 6 weeks. I hate that storytelling.
6 matches in 8 months is diabolical.
It's not enough. And he was injured, but it's not enough.
Agreed. Let us know what you think in the comments and have yourself a merry little Christmas. Even though Christmas was like 6 weeks ago.
I'm a Happy New Year, because I'll be giving hug money. Or New Year's Eve for those outside Scotland. So yeah, final award show. If you want to go back and check out the previous awards in episode 1 and episode 2. Tonight we've awarded Match of the Year to John Cena, Cody Rhodes 2. We've awarded Breakout Star of the Year to Lyra Valkyria, predominantly for her amazing work with Becky Lynch over the summer and her ability to go from new star in the main roster to inevitable world champion. We've awarded Moment of the Year, as voted for. Final decision went down to Ross in that one, but we're all in agreement. The decision to have John Cena tapping out that smile at the camera and our collective feeling of numbness and holy shit, our childhoods are finally gone as John Cena tapped on Gunther's wrist. And then Men's Wrestler of the Year, ultimately we're left completely disappointed by the men's side this year and their inability to work anything more than what is essentially a part-time schedule. And that is the contradiction we had with episode 1 when we talked about the women, because Rhea and Iyo have been full-time every week on telly, at least appearing every week. And ultimately we've got a split decision between Gunther, Cody Rhodes and Dominik Mysterio. And we'll leave it up to you guys. Let us know in the comments what you think. Have a great new year. We'll see you guys on Saturday, where we're going to go through our hot takes and bold predictions for 2026. Have a good one, and we'll see you then.